Is anarchy a dirty word? Who exactly has Bernie Sanders lifted out of poverty? And how important is it to love your job? We'll discuss these questions and more on today's episode of Good Take, Bad Take. Hey friends, welcome to this episode of Good Take, Bad Take. This is the show where we gather takes that we see in our social media feeds each week, and we go through and we critique or we praise them based on the arguments that are behind them. My name is Britt, I'm here with my co-host Donnie, and before we get started, make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment. All of that stuff helps us out. You can find us on Good Take, Bad Take Pod on Instagram and Good Bad Take Pod on Twitter and YouTube. Without further ado, let's get into some of these takes. So the first one we've got is a quote by Tom Woods, the libertarian podcaster that, was one of the first podcasts I ever listened to. And he writes, "One of the greatest victories of the state is that the word anarchy terrifies people, but the word state does not." What do you think?
This is a really good take. You start to understand the way that most people think the more you encounter people. And I'm not saying that everyone is necessarily the same, but people have wide variety of experiences and perspectives, and you begin to see your own unique perspectives when you meet a ton of different people and see how you see things differently. But you can also see the ways in which so many people take the same things for granted because of cultural expectations. And the state is just one of those things where it's, being someone who somewhat lives in the political world and pays attention to this stuff and have done so my whole life, really, it is sometimes you almost think, oh, everyone is at least has a basic understanding of the arguments for and against the liberty perspectives, right? Like, you might disagree with me about things like the coercive nature of taxation, but surely you at least know my perspective and disagree with it. And then you meet all the people who don't live in this world and are normal and aren't weirdly obsessed with this kind of stuff. And you recognize, oh yeah, they not only is it something where they shouldn't have to think about this stuff like we do, but when they do, they ought not have to think about things the way that they do. And you just realize the way that the state is just the presumption. It is the normal. So of course it makes sense to them that you have to pay taxes because that's what is. And when you don't spend time really thinking about it, of course what is right, because it's all you know to some degree. And the way that the propaganda machines run with things like anarchy as a terrifying word, well then of course you're just, if everyone around you is sort of teaching that word and sneering at it or mocking it or saying it's dangerous, then of course you're just going to fit into the group if you don't look into it more. And so that is like the strongest way that you see the argument for like public education not being public education but government education, because the government is directly teaching things such as the state, taxation, all these coercive mechanisms are natural, normal, and don't question them. Moving in any direction other than that is dangerous and scary or laughable.
Yeah, it reminds me of a few things, like the first one being Thomas Massey talking about bills and how if he was to vote purely on the name of any bill that came through, he would probably vote on 100% of them, because every bill is going to have a really nice word like Feed Starving Children Act or whatever. And then you read through the bill, it has like almost nothing to do with feeding starving children and everything to do with subsidizing, some military industrial company or something like that. Like that's like and we all kind of know that that's how bills work. And then it also makes me think of like the FBI and the CIA's like drive to connotate the term conspiracy theory as like a really negative term in the midst of the criticism of the Warren Report and everything with JFK. So now that like conspiracy, which just literally means like, hey, a bunch of people got together and decided to try and enact a plan. Now, if you say that about, well, you could say that about certain types of people, like business conspiracy or private conspiracy or anything like that. But if you say that about the government, suddenly you're like this tinfoil hat, kook or whatever. And so it's the same thing with like the state and anarchy and the way that, large entities will take language and pervert it in order to suit their needs. And this really speaks to how when you have decisions being made at like such a large level and not at the individual level, the lowest common denominator of understanding usually prevails. And that's why they have to make these things so stupid simple. And they have to make it so that a word, drives an emotional reaction or a type of understanding that it might not, but they want it to be that way. And you can really get into this if you like just describe like what the state is versus what anarchy is. And if I describe, a top down bureaucracy that's enforced with violence, that takes your income, that is at the will of the majority, and then I describe like voluntary transactions and people being able to manage their property, and people are held to account based on whether they are hurting people or helping people. And you would think that like one is the state and the other is anarchy, but it's like, oh yeah, like the one that you wouldn't anticipate being anarchy based on the way the state has kind of defined it is that nice free interchange of people exchanging goods and all that good stuff, and then the actual like mafia-esque dystopian future where we all live under oppression is actually the current state that we live under. But people don't really think through that; they just take the status quo, and it's really unfortunate. So the more you can take time to like dig into these terms and like why you might have an emotional reaction to one or the other, the better off you'll be. But of course, that would require people to be more individualistic, and that doesn't really work at the national level. Which these conservatives that talk about like, oh, we need to go back to the Constitution, we need to support our democracy or constitutional republic, whichever state they term. It's like, well, it actually just breaks down in the fact that you can't have this at scale. You can't have people in Washington state determine what people in the state of Florida do, and vice versa. Because then you do have to make these things so stupid and so simple that they're ineffective.
Yeah, I feel like the funny thing is that this perspective, as you learn more about what things mean and what terms, what variations of even the state there can be, but even with that, you start to expand beyond even just the understanding of anarchy good, state bad, because you begin to understand more of the terms. Like, someone calling themselves an anarchist, you can actually have a wide range of perspectives on what anarchy means and how that manifests. The anarcho capitalists that you and I would probably align with more are not the same as the anarchists, the original anarchists, who were more communist, which again, if done by a voluntary measure, isn't necessarily exclusive, but the definitions of what you're fighting, the state versus hierarchies and power structures, these are all different in different interchanges. And even the idea of the state itself can be different depending on what perspective you're taking. So the fact of the matter is that when you have incentive for a misrepresentation of any kind, it oftentimes will help to be dumbing things down. And that's true of whether or not you're talking about good or bad. And so bumper sticker slogans is how the traditional media operates. It's how public education works in a lot of ways. The public education will take a simple concept and kind of explain it thoroughly, with the end result being the same simple concept, right? So you feel like you're learning more about it, but you haven't actually learned the breadth of that topic. Like if I was ever taught about anarchy, it was not that I was in the public education system, but just from people around. If anyone had to explain it more, they would give me like a history maybe of like May Day, and May Day riots and anarchies that of like taking down like violent government overthrows from, impoverished nations. But they wouldn't go through the full context of like, here's what I like about anarchy. Here's what I don't. One of the things that I probably brought this up before on the show, but one of my favorite things I ever experienced in college was an ethics class where the professor would specifically explain a view and say, here's where it holds up and why it works, and here's where it doesn't work. And so every day you'd be going through these different concepts and you'd be learning like, oh, this sounds great. And then he'd explain all the cons. You're like, no, this could never work as an ethical system. And in the last day of class, he's like, here's how I think about ethics, and here's my ethical perspective. And we're like, finally, the answer. So here's why it works. And then here's why it doesn't. He gives all those, and you're like, no, now I don't know what to do. And it's like so few institutions, in particular culturally, but in particular the state in education, is willing to accept nuance and variation. And so it's one of those things where in order to learn about the full perspective of something, you need to know the good and the bad. And so if your instant reactions to things like even the term like liberty, I think like that in and of itself, like I like the idea of liberty, but liberty from the state is a different concept to me than liberty of yourself and liberty of any moral obligations or duties, right? So, these one phrase slogans or bumper sticker signs, if you're only getting positive or negative reactions from them in the totality without any other further nuance, you probably just need to study a little bit deeper. But as of now, it is so completely one-sided by the state because of the way that the public education system has a control on not only the students in it, but the culture as a whole, I would say.
Yes. All right, moving on to our next one. We've got a group photo of everyone Bernie Sanders has lifted from poverty, and it's just a bunch of copy pastes of Bernie Sanders himself. What do you think? Is this true or not true?
Well, I don't. I think this is a bad take because I don't think he lifted himself out of poverty. I think the taxpayers did.
Ooh, there you go.
No, I mean, to give credit where it's due, he certainly does go out and give speeches. So he puts an effort. He does go places. He's a great campaigner. But yeah, no, I mean, honestly, the things that Bernie Sanders is good on, he's good on half the time, but those are far and away nothing to do economically. I wouldn't even say that where he calls out crony capitalism or corporatism, as I prefer, I wouldn't even say he's as good on those, because when you call out corporatism, you have to recognize the root of what enables corporatism to exist. And instead, he says, no, we're going to empower this thing. So even on the issue economically that I would say he's correct on, he doesn't really get it right at the core. And so when you think about, the various wealth distribution policies, even if you were to say that Bernie Sanders policies directly monetarily benefit some group of people, it's not because of him. He's not creating the wealth. He's not lifting people out of poverty. He is merely orchestrating other people to do that work on behalf of him. And so, and it's not done through an incredible organization scheme of voluntary understanding. It's not like someone being hired to direct operations like a CEO, because a CEO is paid based on their results. They're paid based on the value, and it's done voluntarily, where they say, hey, we want this direction. We have these resources. Can you make us more efficient with them? And that's your purpose. A politician is someone who voters say, okay, now you go distribute other people's resources, not the work that I have or that I'm providing. You have to now take them from other people and give to me or to marginalized groups or whatever. So even one of the things that I feel like leftists like Bernie Sanders critique are the CEOs who say they make way too much money and they're not providing value. And yet the most similar private position that a politician really could be compared to is a CEO, which they would say is the most wasteful position in a productive company, where I would say even a CEO is much more productive and actually valuable because of the voluntary nature of the transactions. And at which point, if their things don't work, they have accountability. So it's valuable to everyone involved to have a CEO. Whereas with Bernie Sanders, it's valuable to the people who maybe get the resource shift. But even then, I would argue that they are not better off than they otherwise would be without his meddling in the economic affairs.
Yeah, it always makes me chuckle when, like, a politician, I don't even know if even Bernie Sanders says this, but other politicians, Republican or otherwise, will say, oh yeah, I got into office and we created X amount of jobs or something like that. It's like, no, you didn't. You didn't create a bunch of jobs. I was telling one of my coworkers about this the other day, but like we had, when I was in my band, we had this manager who came on and he was taking 30% of everything. He was supposed to get us a bunch of opportunities and stuff. And we got booked for a show out in Montana and it paid really well. It paid like $2,000 at the time, which was like crazy amount of money, even though like we spent $1,000 in gas to get over there and then like a bunch of money for food and everything. But we got over there, we played the show and I was like, hey, even though I'm paying, my manager $600, for or $400 for booking this for us and everything, or I guess $600 for 30%. Like, I'm okay with it because we wouldn't have this otherwise. And I asked the promoter, I said, hey, like, how do you know, my manager? And he goes, oh no, I didn't. Like, I heard you guys on the radio and I went to your website and I just emailed the management, at yourband.com. And so I was like, oh man, it's like this guy, we were going to get this show anyways. And This guy just kind of like by luck of being there was able to take some money from us. We let go of them pretty quickly after that. But that's how politicians are at best, right? They move in and they just eliminate roadblocks for businesses. And that's what they mean when they say they created jobs. They didn't actually do anything. They just removed some barriers for actual business owners to do the actual work to make things happen. That's like the best case of like a government congressperson or senator or anything like that, or governor. The worst case is like Bernie Sanders, where they literally come in. I think he's been in there for 30, 40 plus years. They literally take your money to pay their salary. They advocate to make it harder for you to create businesses. They have higher regulations so that it's more difficult for the barrier of entry. And then they get rich off of that by making their speeches. And yes, Bernie Sanders has lifted himself out of poverty while also like shoving a bunch of other people down and making it harder for them to escape it. And it made me think of the like an example of like, protecting jobs or saving jobs or like lifting people out of poverty. Like back in the like 2009, Obama to like combat Chinese like tire and rubber manufacturers slapped a big tariff on any imports of like tires and rubber from China. And it cost like in added cost to U.S. consumers, it was like $1 billion or something like that. And it preserved a total of 1,200 tire jobs here in the United States. So if you do the math, that's like $900,000 per tire job saved. So, it's like, okay, these tire jobs, maybe they make $100K a year, maybe. Like that's like way overestimated probably in 2009. But it's like, yeah, so that's what government saving or creating jobs is doing. They spend a bunch of money to save a job that can't even recoup the cost of it. And they just spread it to all of us and the common taxpayer and make us all worse off, all while trying to claim victory. It makes no sense.
Yeah, well said.
Cool. I don't know if you have any more. This is
no.
All right,
yeah,
cool.
I think we're good.
All right, we got this next one. So this person is tweeting a picture of an article that reads, Judge voids Elon Musk's unfathomable $56 billion Tesla pay package. And he writes, Tesla shareholders have won a lawsuit revoking Elon Musk's $56 billion pay package. It was an unfathomable sum to pay a CEO, and the judge agreed it was robbing the shareholders. I guess we found the limit on CEO pay. And to give a little bit of background, so back in, I think it was 2015 or 16, Elon Musk came on to Tesla with this agreement that he had to, increase the shareholder value by X amount and he'd get paid this much. And a shareholder that I believe holds 9 shares brought a lawsuit saying they didn't like this. And the judge ruled that Elon Musk cannot receive this pay package. What are your thoughts on this whole situation?
I'm not super familiar with the specifics and the structure, so I might be speaking out of turn here. So I'll be interested to hear what you think. But my initial thoughts are that if there was in fact a specific agreement that was a contract between shareholders and the company of Tesla, and that agreement was we'll get X return if this CEO is brought with this pay package, if that was all part of the conditions of a contractual agreement, then to me, if it was not honored, then that seems reasonable. But however, I'm not exactly sure why it would be so much so, like, not as straightforward if a judge had to rule in this manner or whatever. I'm not, because I don't know the specifics, I'm a little hesitant to make a sort of declarative statement one way or the other. Initially, this does seem to me, though, like if the shareholders had a contract and the contract was not honored, then that's great. And the other aspect being, again, if this is all done through voluntary means, not through shady or sort of manipulative from outside actors who aren't stakeholders, then this does seem to be a limiting factor in the sense that I don't know, would this 56 billion be, it's not a retroactive thing, it's like a current payment package that you would be receiving?
Mm-hmm. I think it's in stock, and obviously.
Okay. Yeah, because then in that case, again, to me, as long as it's if it was retroactive, it might be a little bit more weird, but to me, it seems like then you are saying, like, you did not bring this amount of value, so therefore, as a stakeholder in this company, who makes determinations and decisions, then we have the right to reject that. But am I missing something here? I don't know enough about it. That's just my initial sort of.
Yeah. So some more background on it, and kind of my argument for why this is a bad take and a bad situation. So back in 2018, Elon Musk reached an agreement with the board and shareholders. I think it was like 80 or 90% of shareholders voted, or 80 to 90% of shares voted in favor of this pay package for Elon Musk. And it set really, really aggressive targets. So basically, Elon Musk either had to do lead Tesla to a wildly successful period of time. I believe it was a 10-year contract. And if he didn't hit a lot of these numbers, then he basically get paid nothing. So it was like incredibly performance-based, very much unlike the rest of the market, how it deals with CEOs and publicly traded companies. And so if you look at the stock price, if you Google it right now, the stock price of Tesla back in 2018 when this package was signed was about $17 a share. If you fast forward today, before this judgment was sent down, it was $211 per share. So he literally 10, 11, 12x the price of Tesla over that 5-year period. So if you had $100,000, invested in Tesla back in 2018, you'd have $2 million almost today, which is just fantastic. That's a really great return. Even today, most shareholders are very happy with Elon Musk. And so when you look at this, like whatever sort of legality was standing, like Tesla and Elon Musk have upheld their end of the bargain. Like he generated tons of value for shareholders and for his communities and just for his employees and everyone in general. And he deserves to be paid what was agreed upon by the shareholders. And what's going on, I think this was a Delaware judge that handed this down. And so it seems punitive because Elon Musk is Elon Musk and not anything else. Not because there's actually anything wrong with this, but because, like the judge was saying, it's unfathomable amount of money. It's like, hey, because Elon Musk owns Twitter, maybe doesn't have the approved opinions, we're going to penalize him. And they found, a shareholder that has 9 shares to bring this lawsuit. So I think it's a bad take. I think it's a bad decision. I think that the complaints that even the leftists leverage against most public companies, which is that CEOs don't really do anything. They don't contribute to shareholder value. They're not incentivized by it. All of the incentives are opposite, and they get paid millions of dollars. Like this is an example of where that went right, where basically Elon Musk said, "Hey, I'll make 0 or I'll make a lot based on how I perform," and he performed really well, so he should get paid that. The other aspect of it too that's really annoying to me and has always annoyed me is part of the judge's decision was that Elon Musk fleeced the shareholders, these dumb shareholders that didn't know any better. Yes, they approved it in droves. The vast majority approved this package, but they were too dumb to understand. And it's like that's not the government's business to understand. It's like they were dumb enough to make millions of dollars. Like okay, like they approved this guy to come in and he 10x the company. I guess it's like who's dumb in that scenario? That's really arrogant of the judge to assume that. And then 2, I've talked about this with my startup before, but like they limit you as a startup unless you're an accredited investor. You can't go get funding from friends and family because you might be duping them because they're not accredited investors that know enough. So you have to go through the venture capital firms to raise any sort of capital because those guys know. So it's a whole system that's rigged towards actually funneling money towards the big guys, even though it's under the disguise of like, we're trying to protect the little person. It's like, no, you're just trying to make it so that the only way to get any sort of funding is through these big institutions, and you're making it so the little guy can't get a piece of it early on.
Yeah. So okay, so even with that further context, that I would be interested to know the judge's reasoning for this, because if again it was deemed an unfathomable, which seems like that's a quote. And if that's part of the actual reasoning for the judge's decision, then that's ridiculous. Like if this is what the agreement was made and people still chose to invest and they got returns on their investment, then yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is if the argument has something to do with, in the past like few years since he bought Twitter, Tesla's stock price has gone down and he's been distracted. If the end result at the agreed term time is still higher, like the 200 amount, and that qualifies under the agreement, it doesn't matter if it was even 500 like 2 years ago and then he caused it to crater, because you wouldn't have the same sort of punitive thinking if, for instance, he grew the company slowly and it never hit the previous high, right? Like let's say, I'm just making these numbers up, let's say stock price when the agreement started was $20 and stock price at the end of this, or at the start of this, lawsuit was $200. So from 20 to 200. But in the prior 2 years, it had been 1,000. So it lost $800 of value. Well, it'd be stupid to say that, well, he doesn't qualify because he lost $800 of value, because you wouldn't have the same thing if instead of going from 200 to 20 to 200 with an 800 stop in the way, if he just grew it by like, $50 every year. So then it went from 200 to 250 and then slowly climbed up, or I'm sorry, from 20 to by $50. So then each year was 20, 70, 120, 180, 170, and then it goes to 200 that way. If it's a slow incline and you get to 200, then it qualifies under this agreement. And if it went to 800 and then dropped down to 200, if that's the justification, I don't know that it is, but I could see the argument being like, oh, well, once he bought Twitter, he was distracted. He's, now he's neglecting his fiduciary duty to the helping the stakeholders and things like that. But to me, it's the end result of the contract. Unless the contract specifies like you have to raise it to this price and you can't lose more than this value in doing it, then sure. So again, I would want to know specifically that how the judge came to his decision, his or her decision, how the contract was set up. But I am pretty inclined to buy what you say, because he's very politically divisive right now, let's say. And based on the way that state Supreme Courts rule, my own state Supreme Court, no exception to this, I know that they are very much not immune from making judgments based on ideology rather than on letter of the law.
Yeah, so the judge was Kathleen McCormick in Delaware, and the reason she put was that it was an unfathomable amount of money, and that the board did not do enough to help the shareholders understand how much money it was going to be if he hit these targets. And to add some like more context to it, Musk and his brother both own a lot of shares in Tesla. During the time of the vote, they actually recused themselves from voting on it. So it's like to me, it seems like it was like really above board in a lot of ways. She also like her decision said like, oh well, the board didn't do a good job balancing informing shareholders that just because Elon Musk has star power and a lot of charisma doesn't mean that he would be a good CEO. And so therefore, like this $56 billion was a bit misleading. So it seems punitive to me. I don't know, regardless of the laws, like let's set that aside. Like, I think that if someone writes a contract and gets into an agreement and people ratify it, and then they hit those targets like they said they would, and there hasn't been any sort of funny business of, pulling the wool over people's eyes or something like that, where they said one thing and did another, then yeah, like if everything looks good there, then he should be paid what he is owed. And it's crazy because like current shareholders, the vast majority of them also are happy with his performance, and they should be, and they should want him to get paid this, because that means he'll stay on and continue this performance. And that's what you want when you have a good CEO, is for them to continue the good performance. That's why they're paid so much when they do a good job.
Well, and it feels really scummy too to say, oh, you met all this agreement, but because you're making some decisions that have nothing to do with our original agreement, that I disagree with now, well, I'm going to go back on my prior agreement. You don't get this pay. And it's like, that's, even if you don't want him to stay on, like, let's say you disagree with his direction in the Cybertruck, you disagree with his neglecting of Tesla because of Twitter drama and stuff. Like, even if you wanted him out for unrelated reasons, it's so scummy to then say, and we're going to use any excuse, even this agreement where he's brought up our financial standing like we agreed to, and he's not going to, we're not going to give him that pay because of these other reasons that we don't like now. I think that's stupid. I'd also say that on the basis of informed consent, the concept I agree with, like if you are in fact not made aware of the full responsibility, I do think that there should be a grace given in those situations. But it seems to me at least that the entire financial package and a CEO bringing up a dollar amount is that's not an issue of informed consent. It's not like people don't understand. Big CEO will get $56 billion if your money goes up. That seems pretty straightforward. It doesn't matter if whether or not his fame or credibility helps or hurts. The dollar amounts are what matter at the end of the day. And if you understand that, the core, it doesn't matter if you understand why or how he's getting there. It just matters that you understand the core of the contract. It'd be like, for instance, if I'm signing a contract with someone to redo the roof of my house, and at the end of the day, the contract says this roof will last you 15 years with no leaks and no damage. Otherwise, we'll come back and fix it for free. And then the entire contract also explains how they're going to shingle the roof in a certain way. And if they shingle it and if I don't understand how that shingling works, and in my head, they're shingling it a different way, but the contract specifies different, and they don't really make that clear to me. If the roof still lasts 15 years, and if they still do everything that they contractually say they're going to do, then it doesn't matter if my consent was entirely informed. The consent was entirely informed when it comes to how things, especially if I'm not the one, or if I'm not taking it upon myself to read the contract. As long as there's no deception or active lying, then informed consent matters so much as you get the most important parts, not necessarily every single aspect of the entire agreement made.
And again, this is a quote from her decision. Shareholders were swept up by the rhetoric of all the upside, or perhaps starry-eyed by Musk's superstar appeal. So much so that the board never asked the $55.8 billion question, was this plan even necessary for Tesla to retain Musk and achieve its goals? It's like, that is not for the government to step in. And obviously, that $55.8 billion question was a good one, because now Tesla went from $55 billion in market cap value in 2018 to $700 billion in 2023. And what's ironic is the shareholders that this judge is claiming to try and protect, they're actually the most hurt by this, because after this decision was rendered, Tesla lost billions of dollars in market cap. So all these shareholders, I mean, if you're holding from 2018, you're still doing great, right? Like even with the government stepping in and saying like, hey, you can't make money, these shareholders are still going to do great because of the performance of Tesla, but they still lost billions of dollars because of this decision, because it now threatens whether or not Elon Musk is going to be CEO of this company. He's going to stay on. They're going to fight it. They'll probably incorporate in some other state that is more friendly to business. But as of right now, $100 billion was taken off of Tesla's market cap in this first month. And so that's like, that hurts the shareholders. That makes the shorts, the people that are betting against Tesla, happy. So that's kind of the great irony of all this, is even the stated goal of this judge's decision is actually hurting the shareholders that she claims to help.
Yeah, I agree. That's just absurd reasoning from the judge.
It's punitive. It's punitive and it's political.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and for her to also speak, just I know this is the nature of the lawsuit and the agreement, but I just hate hearing, the whole group may have thought this or that. It's like, man, if you're talking in the tunes of $56 billion and voiding a contract, like, you better have more than just saying a group of people might have been convinced this way or that way. Like, that's pretty important, and I hate speaking on behalf of a group too,
especially when they don't feel that way today.
Yes, exactly.
Like, I'm not saying that that's like the way to decide, but it's like even it's like, yeah, it's just this belief that they're part of like a cult, or they're just dumb or something like that. It's like, yeah, they're so dumb that they 10x their money. Yeah, maybe the judge is just jealous. All right, moving on to our next one. We've got, first on Fox, a group of Republican senators are demanding that the Federal Bureau of Investigation repair the damage to its credibility after a series of errors surrounding the origin of the anti-Catholic memo that targeted traditional Catholics as potential terrorists. The memo, which has been since retracted by its creators in the FBI Richmond field office, was a focus in congressional oversight action and hearings last year, and garnered significant criticism by Republican lawmakers. And a comment on this article reads, the FBI lost its credibility through a series of strong-arm tactics, not just the anti-Catholic memo. It will never rehabilitate itself so long as Christopher Wray and his senior staff are in power. What do you think? Does this user have a point?
Well, yeah, but no. Like, it's a bad take. It's exactly what Vivek Ramaswamy sort of criticizes all the other Republicans in the field on, well, formerly in the field, I guess, which is, they talk about the talking head, like, oh, we just need to get Christopher Wray out. And at least this commenter says, and his senior staff, but no, to Vivek and basically everyone who's been good on this issue before Vivek, like, the libertarians who matter, the FBI needs to go away. The FBI needs to be gone. It's always been corrupt. It's never been, it hasn't lost its credibility because it never had any to begin with. When you're talking about real credibility, it might have had perceived credibility and might have lost its perception of credibility from folks, but it has never been a credible organization unless your name is like J. Edgar Hoover. Then it functions perfectly, exactly how you want it to be. But if your value alignment is to say, the FBI is doing a great job because it is the exact institution that J. Edgar Hoover wanted it to be, then I would probably not want to associate with you very much. I probably wouldn't want to trust any of my family around you either. The FBI has, from its inception, been rotten, has spied on American citizens. It has been used for political ends, and it is, famously, the one sort of wing of government bureaucracy that the presidency himself fears,
Yeah.
And I would argue that there's probably a lot more of the bureaucratic arm of the government that controls the presidency, but it's so openly corrupt that even that's public knowledge that the presidency fears the FBI, right? and this is not just in the abstract. It's not just it's whoever's in political control is using this arm of power. It's pretty much an independently mired institution. So like to me, it's one of those things where if you're a populist Republican who thinks we just need to get the right guys voted in power to use this power, if you're a left wing populist or even just moderate on either side who thinks no, we just want to get our team in to guide the ship in the right direction. The FBI is not a ship you guide. It doesn't matter who your appointment is at the head. The FBI as an institution is its own sort of Leviathan that I don't think it matters who is in the White House. They will carry out the corrupt ends in and of itself. And so the only thing that matters as far as the FBI is concerned of who's in the White House is are you going to have someone who threatens your actual power by completely gutting you? Again, cutting off the head, you're going to get two more in its place kind of a thing. You need to actually kill the evil itself. And so this take is bad because all this is doing is trimming off the head. It's not gutting the thing from its core. And it, of course, assumes that originally it ever was something to be admired or worthy to be established.
Yes, this is the equivalent of a spouse in a domestic violence situation. After being beaten for years, claiming like, well, they promised this would be the last time that happened. It's like no, like there's something systemically wrong with this person, and you probably need to get out of that relationship and away from it because it's not going to change. And as we all know, the FBI has used and abused the American people ever since its inception. As I've talked about before, the point of a system is what it does, and the point of the FBI is what it has done, which is totally, terrorize and enforce the deep state agenda upon the American people. And when Vivek was kind of getting on Trump, because I think Trump was like, "Oh, we just gotta kind of reform it, and we're going to move it into a new building." And Vivek's like, "No, we just need to bulldoze the building over." That's the right idea. Like some things are so rotten to their core that they just need to be totally destroyed. But going back to like the first take that we had, where people like associate certain types of meanings with words and certain types of good or bad connotations, people associate FBI as like the end all be all for justice. When everything else fails, when no one else is coming to save you, the FBI and the CIA are the ones that you can call on. Like they're the ones that are always good. And it's like no, what's nice about like Trump and the way that they persecuted him from the deep state is that people are now more aware of it. More conservatives like do not trust the FBI. So there's a bit of a fracturing in that. And then things like the anti-Catholic memo, as well as the memos about parents at school board meetings being put on terror watch lists and things, that further fractures it. And so the more people take away from the credibility of the FBI, the better. And it's not a matter of like, oh, it's Christopher Wray. I bet most of the people that don't like guy don't actually know who Christopher Wray is, and that's a good thing. I'm actually happy about that because it means that it's like, oh yeah, it's not like, oh, I can fix it. I can fix this person, I can fix this system. It's like, no, the whole thing is rotten. I recognize it as the juggernaut of terror that it actually is, and hopefully we can get to enough people not putting their faith in it, so that it eventually is abolished.
Yeah, agreed. Well, and the last thing I'll say too is the idea that the memo was retracted or something like that too. It's like, it's because they got caught.
They got caught.
It's not like this was this good faith thing. Oh, it was an accident. You shouldn't ever buy that line. Not that most people do, but also that's just one of the lamest. I mean, that's along the lines of like Jeff Epstein killed himself, and the footage was leaked. Oh, the thing was broken. Oh, the security guard didn't.
Yes.
It's just like, come on, give me a break.
All right, this is our last one. It's from Bowtied Ranger on Twitter. And they write, somewhere along the way, boomers started pitching fake cliches like love what you do and do whatever makes you happy, and convinced younger generations that work was supposed to be fun. Some of the worst advice ever given. What do you think?
I think this is actually kind of a good take, right? Like the idea that I mean, there's a balance to everything, right? Because on the one hand, you don't want to have a culture in which people are threatened to, you have to grow up to be exactly in this class or whatever. And the beauty of American liberty in so many ways is that if you have a good idea and you have the opportunity to make it happen, you can be successful, and not only that, but America in general and free market exchanges and things like that allow for more opportunities for you to take those risks. So that's the beauty of this kind of sentiment. And I think the problem is that this sentiment got twisted and hammered into, love what you do always and like do whatever makes you happy, because you have the freedom to do that. And again, it's one of those things where, like I was talking about with the term liberty earlier, people construe liberty to always mean always good, always bad. And it's like, no, like, you are free to do what you love in a sense, but that doesn't entitle you to being able to be successful off of it. And the problem is when we've pitched things in this way, when we say like, oh, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, things like that. The problem is we never taught, we did a poor job, not we, a poor job was done to teach people how to love work, how to love being productive. And that's the key issue, especially in a culture that tries to demonize things like, laissez-faire economics and free exchange and working hard to be successful. And you have a generation of people who would rather focus on oppression and ways in which people are unequal, regardless of the reasons for it. And when you focus on those things, you're not going to incentivize a culture of people who want to do well and who want to be successful and work hard and love doing that. They're going to just love what, your natural inclinations are, like sleeping in and being lazy. And, I like those things too, but you can't do that for a living and that's not going to sustain you. So I think that's one of the key issues probably.
Yeah, I think that I like this take a lot. I don't have a problem with trying to find a job that you enjoy doing. Like that's not a bad thing. I think that you can kind of swing that way potentially. But I think that like most of my enjoyment of the work that I do in any instance, I do a lot of different things, is that I deeply associate it with the main purpose of my life, which is providing for my family. And so doing well at any of these jobs that I have, like I see it translate to my family doing better for my wife and my daughter. And so that makes it, I automatically enjoy all of these jobs and getting results so much more. And it's hard for me to tell whether I like these or not, based on just purely what the job I'm doing or because of the meaning that is associated, not with the job itself, but with what the job provides for my family. And I think that like, yeah, you're not going to love what you do if you feel aimless and you feel like, hey, I'm just working for a paycheck that contributes to my already empty and aimless and purposeless lifestyle that is not filled with any sort of family or living on behalf of supporting another person or anything like that. Like, of course, I don't think any job would ever be satisfying if you knew that it wasn't actually, supporting the thing that matters most in life. And so you have that, and then you see that we have like lower rates of marriage and lower rates of people actually starting families, and all these millennials that are deeply unhappy with work, like trying to not have kids and not settle down and not make commitments and not plan for their future. It's like, yeah, of course, any job you have, even if you were sitting on a beach and your only job was to drink a soda pop like every day and go swimming, it's like, yeah, that would still feel purple. Like you would have no purpose and it would suck. Because you're not actually contributing towards the future. And I think we're all hardwired to want to work towards something. And the ability of us to see that and to, put our head down and work at something that we might not enjoy, but we enjoy the result of it, is what gives humans meaning and gives them, joy and happiness. And no one likes, I ran a marathon last year. Like I absolutely hated almost every single minute of the running of it. Like the actual, like my legs breaking and my body not being able to breathe properly. But I loved what the result was going to be, right? And I can separate that. And in the same way, I think that our generation needs to be able to be like, hey, like, yeah, some types of jobs suck, but they're for a really good purpose. And if you can get into a job, one of my mentors told me this, if you can get into a job that like you can tolerate 60% of the time, that you kind of like or love 30% of the time, and that you absolutely hate 10% of the time, like you're in a job that's like better than any job you'll probably ever be on in your life. Like, and that's, I think that if you can apply that to your life and see where your job actually supports you in terms of like your goals, and that you've aligned your life in a way that is full of purpose and meaning, then anything that you do will make you happy. Anything you do, you'll love because it's in furtherance of that actual meaning in life.
Absolutely right. Yeah, I was going to say that there is definitely something to be said for finding the fit where you feel not only are you doing something not, not necessarily enjoyable, like you were saying with the running, but like even when you get into a workflow for something you feel that you're good at or that makes sense to you, if you can get into that position with a job that lets you do that at a reasonable rate, that in many ways is the place where you can find, oh, I'm gonna love what I do, quote unquote. Because again, taken at its best, finding do what makes you happy or love what you do shouldn't be the most literal understanding of that. It should be, find where you can excel and the way, because people's brains work differently, people's bodies work differently. Some people absolutely would die, of just being fidgety and sort of restless being in a desk job, and some people would absolutely die being manually worked every day. It's like people have different needs and abilities, and you have to address the ultimate need, which is to provide resources for yourself and your family. But if you can do that by matching yourself up with an area where your mind and your body work better, and that way you can, quote unquote, do what you love, or at least do something that you can feel competent and good at. And oftentimes the way that you will, quote unquote, love what you do is by finding that match of something where you get energy from having done it and from the end result. It doesn't mean it's not tiring, doesn't mean it's not hard, doesn't mean there are unenjoyable times a lot of the time, but it does mean that at the end of the day, you want to keep doing it because it's worth it. And that's, again, there are a lot of people who are miserable in class systems because they were forced into something that they don't connect with at all. They don't have the opportunity to get to more. There's nothing for them to go after there other than the resource collection. And that's bad. But you also don't want to be such a holdout that you're like, well, you know what, this job I'm not totally comfortable in all the time. There are hard moments and it's not 100% everything I love. So being able to find the fit of, you will naturally start to love a job more if you are better at it and if you are more competent, and if you can align your own skill set or gain that skill set or align your own proclivities and natural tendencies into something that fits, then that's going to make you happier in your work. But we shouldn't try to make this equation that like working and watching a movie or playing a game are on the same level of being happy or something like that. Happy is also just such a, the word hap having to do with luck, the root word, I think it's Latin, hap having to do with fleeting luck. And that's what happy is. Happiness is a fleeting emotion. And so do whatever makes you happy is really kind of a not helpful thing to think when you're talking about a life's purpose of work and career and
I like it. That. Yeah, that's good. I don't have any more to add to it unless you do.
All right.
Awesome. Well, friends, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it, and we'll catch you on the next one.